Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Welcome back. Hope everyone had a nice weekend. Attendance is running. Starting again today, I'll be taking attendance for real. And so if you're not here, you have a few more seconds, but please check in. Before I get started, there's a holiday. Isaac, welcome. Constitution Day, September 17th, is in honor of signing the Constitution. It's actually a holiday that the federal government requires schools to celebrate. Ironically, I think that's unconstitutional. You can't force people to engage in speech. But it's true, I think it's unconstitutional. So we celebrate it every year at South Texas, not on Constitution Day, which is not deliberate, but usually winds up that way. But today, immediately after this class, Professor Kelso, do you have Professor Kelso? Yeah, Professor Kelso, you may have him at some point in your studies. He teaches common law also. We'll be hosting an event on Constitution Day. So I encourage you all to attend. I encourage you all to participate. And even if you don't care about the Constitution, which you should, there's free barbecue, which I understand is quite good. So come on by after this class is over. The second announcement is the syllabus. I sent you all an email over the weekend, which you should have received, but I've now updated it. And this will account for the rest of the semester. In other words, 3 weeks from now, we'll be completely on schedule. The only effect of the storm is that you'll have one fewer class to study for in the midterm. So you're probably happy about that, but there's one less class of material that will be in the midterm. Everything else will be about the same, which is my compromise to you. I wanted to get it all in, but it couldn't quite fit. So we have class today. That's the 19th. Thursday is Rosh Hashanah. Happy Rosh Hashanah, everyone. I had scheduled this makeup on Friday. It'll be in this room, same time at 10:40 on the 22nd. Again, attendance is not required in person. You don't have to come in person. You can watch it live if you wish. It's on YouTube. Or you can watch on demand. But I ask you to email me and certify that you actually watched it. I think that's fair. It's as fair as I can get. Likewise, we're going to have a couple Sunday classes. Not ideal, but it's the best we can do with the circumstances. Again, if you can't come, just watch it. Email me that you certified it, and I will mark you present. No, I'm not going to force you to prove you watched. I'll take your word for it, be honest. So we have a class on Sunday. And then on the 26th, we come back. Class normal. Okay. And then on the 3rd, we have your midterm. Now, you've had your first Langdell session? Yeah. Okay, Caleb, right? Okay, he's very good. I encourage you to run questions by him. But I want to repeat today something that I said in class, maybe the first or second week. The way to study for an exam is by taking old exams. Not looking over your notes, that doesn't mean anything. When you look over something, that means absolutely nothing. Right? So if any of you come to me and ask me, how did you prepare for the midterm? And you say, looked over my notes, I will say you didn't study. So don't do that. Take one of my old midterms under time conditions. Go to the library. Give yourself 90 minutes and actually take it. Like, not look at it, take it. You will learn more in that 90 minutes than in 8 hours of studying. Trust me on that. Because when you force yourself to actually read a question and answer it, you put yourself in the right mindset. Let me talk a minute of how, by the way, if you don't know, the exams are listed on the syllabus, right? I want you to look up here. I'll make the font a little bit bigger. Okay, right up here. Okay? I have a midterm from fall 2015 and the A+ answer. Okay? I want you to go and take that midterm for fall 2015 and then grade yourself. Now, it doesn't have to be perfect, right? You're still a couple weeks out. Maybe you haven't studied everything. In fact, because of the flood, I think there might be some topics you haven't studied, but you'll get a good enough sense of where you are by comparing yourself. Okay? Let me briefly recap this here so you have a general sense here. I'll download it for you right now and I'll walk you through it. I did this once before, I'll do it again. So you click on this link. Okay. Okay. There's going to be one question with a 1,000-word limit. You have 90 minutes. That's the format, I promise. The question will be probably a fact pattern. This one I think is about 1.5 pages in length. But the fact pattern will be at a page, maybe 2 pages. That is not to mean you should read it in 5 minutes. In fact, I often tell students you should budget maybe 20 minutes to read the question. And here's how I suggest that you read the question. This is my advice. Take it or leave it. Doesn't really matter. At the top, there are instructions. Read that first. The reason why you should read the instructions first is because you want to know what you're supposed to do. I give you information, very important information there. So it says you're a law clerk for the Chief Justice, the Supreme Court. I think it was a Lion King question. The Chief Justice for PQ, the Supreme Court of Pride Land. It adheres to all common law property rules in restatement first. That's an important piece of information for you to know, because we've discussed in this class you have common law rules and you have modern rules. I'm going to tell you what jurisdiction you're in, right? Don't give me modern rules if you're in a common law jurisdiction. And this shouldn't come as a surprise, but I almost always test on the common law rules because they're actual rules, and the answer is not just whatever's fair, right? I will sometimes say, you're in California, give it to me, right? But you're in New Jersey, right? But most of the time, I want you to tell me actual law and not modern fluff, okay? There's a 10-year period for adverse possession. That's good for you to know, because that's telling you there's an adverse possession question, right? You know what I'm going to ask. Okay, write a memo of 1,000 words. After you read the first block of instructions, I want you to jump down to the end to read the prompt, right? You all know this from high school and college. What's the prompt of the question? And I give it to you right here, okay? Lawsuits were filed. Prepare a memorandum of 1,000 words total, not 1,000 words times 5, 1,000 words total for all 5. That tells you roughly 200 words per question. This has to be exact, right? And the reason why I give a word limit is for your fairness. I can't compare an essay of 1,000 words and an essay of 5,000 words. I can't do it, right? If you can vomit 5,000 words in a page, you're giving me a lot of useless stuff, but it probably gives me more knowledge than the person who can only write 1,000. This equalizes it. This punishes top students, trust me, I know. When I was in law school, I could dump out 5,000 words in an hour and just vomit all over the page and hope I meandered to a correct answer, right? No go in my class, not gonna work. You have to be precise and give me exactly what I'm looking for. And again, this is not, please discuss all relevant issues, right? I'm not giving you that. I'm giving you 5 specific questions. Now, here's a very good piece of advice. If you want to get at least a B in my class, answer the question. Answer the question. The number one reason why people get below a B, and you will come to the office, I'll say, you didn't answer the question. You gave me something related, or you answered a different question. Answer the damn question. Don't break my heart, right? You give me all this knowledge that you've learned, but if it's not responsive to these questions, you haven't done the exam. Answer the question. Answer the question, okay? So read the prompt, read each of these 5 parts, okay? And then what I suggest you do, this is a good tip in general, is next to each of the 5 parts, write like a 2-word summary. So, okay, number 1, you write over here, adverse possession, okay? Number 2, something about a general warranty deed, okay? Something about a defect in a deed, right? Write like a 2 or 3 word description, and I'll tell you why. As you're reading the fact pattern, things are going to jump out at you. It's like, oh, wait a minute, this is about adverse possession, right? This is about a general warranty deed. In the margin, write, oh, this is question number 1, adverse possession. Write it in the margin right next to the facts. That way you don't have to keep rereading the same fact pattern over and over again. Read it once, and put your little numbers in the margin, and that was it. Oh, wait a minute, this question of adverse possession, it's this paragraph over here. It saves you time. Time should not be a factor for you if you prepare well, if you know how to answer the questions. If you start scrambling and spend an hour reading the question, you're not going to finish. And every semester without fail, maybe, I don't know, 5% never finish. It's not a large number, but maybe 5% never finish. And I always talk to students after, like, hey, you know, what happens? Why didn't you finish? Like, well, you know, I spent an hour reading the question. It shouldn't take you an hour. But if you don't have the right strategy, you can get stuck reading it over and over and over again, and then you get flustered. So spare yourself that. I want everyone to do I want everyone to finish. As long as you finish, like you're above the C mark, right? Generally, the papers that get below C are people who just don't finish. So finish and you're above a C. Answer the damn question, you'll get a B. Answer it well, you get an A. Right? It's not that hard. I can't give everyone an A, and invariably the class curves. It happens no matter what. I'm giving you this advice. 20% of you won't listen to me, which is fine. I know you won't, but I'm giving it to all of you free of charge. You're actually paying for that, I suppose, but free for no extra cost. Giving this free advice. Anyway, now Isaac has been in my class twice before. Is this advice generally consistent with your experiences?
Worked out well.
Was that?
Worked out well.
Yeah. I mean, so I'm not giving you fluff. I'm telling you precisely what I would tell students during a midterm review, but I'm telling you before the review because I want you to not make these mistakes. All right. So at some point in the next week or two, take 90 minutes and do this question. You may not have everything lined up. I think you will, but even if you don't know something well enough, you'll get a good sense. Okay? At some point, I will send around an email with a poll for people to sign up for times. I have 110 students, so I'll basically have 110 slots between now and the end of the semester. These are 30-minute slots. I will meet with every one of you. If you don't sign up for a slot, I will find you and put you in a slot, right? So don't make me do that. There'll be plenty of times, right? They'll mostly be at nights, a couple weekends, I think, but sign up early, get the slot you prefer, and come meet with me because I want to help you. I want you to do as well as you can in this class. Everyone cannot get an A, but I want anyone who tries to actually get that. Okay? Question at the midterm. Yes, sir, Chester.
It was really a question regarding the makeup classes.
Oh, yeah. Let me go back to the syllabus. I didn't finish doing it. I'm sorry. Okay, the schedule is over here. Okay, yes, sir. What's your question?
In regards to us, the people that can't actually be in attendance and you want to watch it, are you giving us a time frame in regards to?
I don't want to make it strict within a week. Is that fair?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I would give you more time, but I don't want you to fall behind because if you skip class 15 and then you come into class 16 without watching class 15, you're not going to know what's going on. So I'd ask maybe within a couple days, but if you do it within a week, I won't be angry. Yes, what's it?
What time is the makeup class on Friday?
Oh, it's I think it's at the same time, 10:40. Yeah, it's going to be same time as normal, 10:40 in this room.
And then we have one Sunday, September 24th at noon.
Yes. Yeah. So I'll write this on the board for everyone to see. So the class of 922 is going to be at 10:40 in this room. Same seats. Bring your name tags. And the class of 924, I made it a little bit later because it's Sunday, will be at 12 o'clock. And 90-minute session. Unless you think I'm shirking, I have my common law class immediately after this. I'll be here all day Sunday, so this is not, you get off half the day. All right. I saw a hand somewhere over there. Is that a hand?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah. Watch it within a week, but I would watch it the same day if you can. If it's not possible, I get it, but don't fall behind. That's more important. And I'll tell you, I mean, even if you're really stuck, watch the class from last semester, and I'll certify that as well. If you want to watch in advance, I'm fine with that. I mean, my lectures are probably 80% the same, maybe variation here or there, but just don't fall behind. Questions on that? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Taylor.
You said it's live on YouTube or live on the streaming site?
Both. Yeah, the way this thing works is actually pretty cool. So live stream is the platform that streams it live, but simulcast my YouTube channel. So whichever you prefer. I prefer YouTube because you can pause and rewind it easier. Live stream is a little hard, but it's whatever you prefer. Someone in my other section asked if they're watching a class from home, could they email me questions? I will hesitate to say no, only because I don't want to stop and start reading emails during class. I think that would be counterproductive. But if you email me a question during class, I'll try to get it to you afterwards, but I don't make any promise I'll announce it during the class. I once had a student who had a moot court tournament or something, and they had to miss classes, and so then they were watching it live, and they start emailing me all these questions, like, what are you doing? You're not here. But I'll get your question eventually. I can't promise that I'll do it during the class session, but I will answer your question eventually. Yeah, again, I appreciate the flexibility. I don't ever schedule weekend classes, but the situation with Harvey, that there's no other way of doing it. Okay. Anyone else? All right. I think I saw the attendance running. Okay, end this now. Okay, very good. Only 5 absentees. I think I had 20 absentees last week. Very good. All right, let's start off with a question. It's actually in your textbook. It's example number 7. If you go to page 725, please. Okay. Okay, and this is going to be your polling question to start off the session today. And I'll read it for you. Okay? Okay. O conveys to A, who does not record. A then conveys to B, who records the A to B deed. O conveys to C, a purchaser for value who has no actual knowledge of the deeds from O to A and from A to B. C records. Who prevails? So the choices are B or C. Do not put A. If you put A, you're wrong. That's not an option. Just put B or C. Don't screw this up. B or C. Who prevails? Don't put A. If anyone puts A, I'm going to be very unhappy. I know one joker's going to put A, but fine. Who prevails here? By the way, I have this weird head cold, and when I fly with the head cold, I get my ear doesn't pop, so I can hear fine from this ear, but this ear, it's like fully congested, so I have this like 50% hearing in this ear. It's very annoying. So if I ask you to speak up, it's not because I'm not paying attention, it's just my ear's literally clogged. The pharmacy's not open to sell Sudafed over the counter because of the drug thing, so I can't get anything real until after class today. There was a funny article that said it's actually easier to buy meth than it is to buy Sudafed at night. It's true. And you can actually desynthesize a meth back into pseudoephedrine easier than going to the CVS at night because they're closed. So, whatever. All right. Okay. Who did I lay off with last time? Who did I finish off with? Okay. Oh, yes, you went to the bathroom. That's right. Thank you for your honesty. Don't go to the bathroom. I'm about to call on you.
I didn't know in my defense. Sorry.
That's okay. Just. I've had it happen where I've noticed people do that deliberately. I'm not saying you did it, but sometimes people deliberately go to the bathroom when they're like next on the row, and I know and I come back to them. So, all right, Nicole, I'm not blaming you. So what did you put to this one, please?
I put C.
You said C prevails. Okay. Now, why do you think that C prevails here?
Because the transaction to A and B was never recorded.
Okay.
And C had no knowledge. So.
Well, C had no knowledge. Could C have figured out about this? Is there anything that C could have done to determine that this earlier transaction happened?
He could have, I guess he could have seen the transaction from A to B, but how would he know that that came from?
How on earth, Nicole, would C ever know that A? Would he ever know to search for A's name? What is the only name that he knows to search for? The only name that he would know to search for. That's right, okay? So walk through here, right? If you're C, right, you're under a veil of ignorance. All you know about is this guy O, and O sold it to you. You have no knowledge of A, you have no knowledge of B. So if you go to remember the big books, right? If you go to the big index, and you search for O, as far as you know, when you make this transaction, you have no knowledge of the A to B transaction, you have no knowledge of the O to A transaction. All you know about is C, okay? Even though B recorded, it doesn't matter because you have no knowledge of who B is. Okay? So Nicole's correct, right? The correct answer is C, right? Oh, look at that. Look at that. So who put B? Casey, what'd you put?
I put C.
I'll come back to you. Do you put B, Tyler? Okay, good. Be honest here. Why'd you put B?
I thought B because I guess B was a subsequent bona fide purchaser and then let's see, C could have looked back after like in the registry or the index and found that there was a land conveyance from well, I guess the O to A was never recorded, so Is there any way that you could look up the parcel of land?
Well, if you had an index based on tract, right? A tract index, that would work, but you don't have that.
Okay, so then you would never know.
Yeah. It's tempting to put B here, right? Because B recorded first. But C is a subsequent bona fide purchaser for value. And as a subsequent bona fide purchaser, C prevails. Okay? This example illustrates the concept of chain of title. And the concept of chain of title is a difficult concept to explain because it has multiple meanings. But what it generally refers to is the stuff you have to examine, right? In order to be a bona fide purchaser for value. To be a BFP, you have to search some body of material. Some body of material. Here, C searched everything possible, right? C searched everything possible, and nothing came up. Therefore, C is the is the bona fide purchaser. Okay?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So, is B not a bona fide or a bona fide?
No. Now, my next question, I think, will actually address that. I'll go back to Casey. Casey, what happened if I change this question, right? I said here that B recorded an O to A deed, right? This is it. B recorded a deed from A to B. What if A recorded first? Right? What if A recorded the transaction from O to A? So change it up a little, right?
Then, yeah, you would be able to.
If O conveys to A and then A records, how would that change the question?
You would be able to find it.
Would C then be a BFP? So, Valerie, the answer to your question is this. C is a subsequent purchaser, right? He didn't take it from O. He took it from a middleman. C took it right from O, right? Had A recorded the O to A transaction, then this entire question would be different. Okay, now, Valerie, let me finish this up, right? If you're C, right, and you buy it from B, what's the first question you're going to ask? If you're C and buying it from B, what's the first question you're going to ask? Where'd you get it from, right? Is there any record? Right? Is there any record of where A got it from?
No.
Okay, there you go. If you're C and you're buying it from B, I'm sorry. If you're B and buying it from A, there's no record how A got it. There isn't. You should be on notice that, wait a minute, something in this chain is not complete. There's no record how A got it. But you're buying it anyway. You're not, to quote Britney Spears, you're not that innocent, right? Got it, Lord help me. I'm actually giving a talk in Vegas next month, and I got tickets to see Britney Spears. My girlfriend will be very, well, fun. But they're not cheap. They're not cheap tickets, but we'll see. Anyway. But the point is, if you're B and you're buying this from A, you should know something's up. Because where did A get it from? I don't know. He never recorded this initial deed. But, and this is the question I put to Casey a minute ago, if A recorded this initial deed, then the chain's complete. Then it goes from O to A to B, then B, one second, Chester, then B would then be a BFP, and he would have it. The fact is, you're buying property as B with an incomplete chain. You're not innocent, right? You should be aware something's up. On the other hand, C bought it with a complete chain. O was the owner, and it went to C. So there's no doubt about C's transaction.
So what he should have done is told A to report it, and then?
Well, C should have said, hey, where'd you get it from? He said, well, I got it from O. Okay, you record your deed, prove it, and then I'll record mine. Had that happened, B would prevail. Everyone understand that? B would have prevailed had this first deed been recorded. But the fact that the first deed was not recorded means the chain is incomplete. Who has a complete chain? C. Therefore, C is a bona fide purchaser for value. B is not, because B didn't do his due diligence. He bought a property with a shaky chain. Now, you can buy property with an incomplete chain of title. There's nothing wrong with that. But you do it at your own risk. You do it at the risk that someone else comes along and then has a higher claim than you are. Chester, patiently waiting. Thank you, sir.
So B currently, so B doesn't have, so B, since B's not innocent, he doesn't have a remedy.
B's screwed. So I think what would happen to B in this case is he would probably, well, I think B's screwed. Because A didn't do anything wrong, right? A's failure to record, it's not a big deal. Unless O has some sort of general warranty deed, I don't think B can go back after O. I think B's screwed, right? Unless he has title insurance, but we talk about this later. But when you buy a piece of property and you don't have a clean chain where there's missing links in the chain, you're making a risk. You're taking on a risk. And if that risk doesn't pan out, sucks to you. And by the way, again, I promise you in the exam, I promise you, that O will sell the property to multiple people. Without a doubt, I promise. You guys, just take my word for it. I'm not lying to you. You're going to have a question exactly like this, where the same person sells property to one and to the other. But everyone get this notion of chain of title, right? What was available, right? What was the universe of stuff that C could look into? All C knew about was O. And he looked at O, everything looked good. In contrast, B should have known, okay, I'm getting from A. Where did A get it from? I don't know. There's a risk, right? There's a risk. In fact, there's I think this is somewhere in the reading, but in a number of states, including Texas, when you buy a quitclaim deed without any sort of clean title, there's a presumption you're not a BFB, right? When you're buying a deed without, a clean title, a clean chain, there's a presumption that you're not a bona fide purchaser, that you're speculating, you're taking on a risk, and maybe you'll lose out. Mia.
I was just wondering, does O get in trouble at all for selling the property?
Well, who can sue O for fraud?
C.
Well, but C prevails though. But C won.
So A.
Yeah, but A's out of the picture. This was the question I think
Well, then he said
Chester
he
asked.
doesn't have any remedy.
I think B is screwed. B could try to sue A, but A didn't do anything wrong, right? A sold a piece of property. He didn't do anything wrong. The fraud person here is O. So unless B can get back to oath in privity, I don't think he can in this question. I think B is out of luck. He has title insurance, maybe.
So O just gets double the money?
There might be an unjust enrichment claim, but I don't think O and B are in privity. Right? I think B is out of luck. Unless, these are facts not in the question, but unless it was a general warranty deed where O guaranteed to you and your assigns forever, okay, maybe. But just like this, I'm guessing it was a quick claim deed. Sometimes you get screwed. Yes, was that Michael?
Yeah. So if B does his due diligence and finds O, then he records the O to A transaction, or
Whoa, how can B record the O to A transaction?
Right, so what does he do if he finds that?
Well, it's too late. He already bought it. He should have demanded that before he purchased the property.
Exactly, before he purchased the property. So how does he ensure that the chain of title is sent?
Okay, I'll take your question, right? So he's like, look, I want to buy Blackacre, but I see that you don't have a good chain. Go ahead and record your deed, and then I'll make the transaction, right? So I will not close on this deal until I see that you record it.
Right, okay.
But maybe he doesn't want to record it. Maybe he doesn't really have title. Then you walk away. But I think here the way the question is framed is he took a risk. Yusuf.
I feel like this outcome motivation for if O gives it to anybody and he knows that A or whoever didn't record the deed, that they can just go and sell it again without it.
Well, that's why if you're buying property with a quitclaim deed, you take a risk, right? Yusuf, you're right. It encourages fraud, right? It encourages O to be a jerk. And if there's no warranty made, you take it like that. But I'm guessing this sort of question, I didn't put dollar amounts here. Property B took was for a very low price. Because it was on the guess that this may not pan out okay for me. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, but again, it's land speculation, right? It's speculation. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, I don't know. Other questions on this example? Right, so I like starting the class off with this question because it illustrates you're only under an obligation to search what is in the chain of title, right? What is available for you to find. The other cases we'll study next give exceptions to that, right? Where in some cases, you're required to take notice of stuff that's not in your chain of title. And maybe stuff that you would only notice by asking someone or looking around your neighborhood or whatever else. Any questions on example 7? Okay, let's do the first case. Guillette versus Drywall, Massachusetts, 1975. By the way, the Massachusetts, the highest court is called the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court. It's one of the oldest courts in the Western Hemisphere. Still in service. So I actually have an old Google map. And this is the neighborhood that is at issue. And if you look at this block, and it's hard to see from this picture, but trust me on this, the entire neighborhood is a single-family home. All right, every piece of property is a single-family home. There's no commercial. There's no multi-family home. There's no apartment complexes. It's all single-family homes. So the question presented in this case: what happens when there's a restriction that's not in your chain of title, but could be discovered from looking around? Okay, so Antonella, I think you're next. Can you hear the facts, please, and Juliet?
Sure. So there was like several different lots, and they were all owned by and sold by one person.
Good. By the way, let me pause you for a minute. This is what's called a subdivision. Okay. What does a subdivision mean? You have one person or a company who owns a massive piece of land, and then he chops it up into little pieces and sells it out. But a common technique used in subdivision is to put deed restrictions on the property, right? So if I want to have a massive subdivision for one-family homes, I will then chop it up and put a restriction on it, what's called a covenant, we'll do this later, saying only one-family homes are allowed. So that's not only the first person who owns it, but also the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. It's basically, it runs with the land, so to speak, right? The covenant's always there. So here you have, and that sounds exactly right, you have one person who had a massive a piece of real estate, he chopped it up, subdivided it, and he put restrictions. Okay, and tell us about these restrictions, please.
So the restrictions were put, I think it was like on 2 of the 8
Good.
deeds.
Good.
And they basically said like you can't have multi-family
Very
or
good.
multi-person.
Very good, very good. Thank you so much, right? So the land was chopped up. Don't get bogged down in the names because they're not very important, but some of the properties had in their chain of title this restriction. Some of them did not have this restriction in the chain of title. Okay? The party at issue in this case that purchased the land did not have this in their chain of title, right? Now, Stormy, let me ask you a question. Would it have been possible for the drywall company in this case, right, to have found out what restrictions exist in other deeds in this community?
Yes.
Okay, how could the drywall company have figured this out? What are some different ways?
I think that, so it referenced like the 1968 plan, which other deeds reference, like the same kind of general, I don't know how to explain it.
Well, Stormy, let's talk about this in terms of the chain of title, right? Remind us, it discusses, what's chain of title? What does that phrase mean?
It's like the process you have to go through, like the stuff you have to look up to determine if the title.
Good. So, could it have been ascertained by drywall that these deeds may have existed somewhere else? Was that like in the universe of stuff that was discoverable?
Yes.
Okay, how come?
Because they could trace it back to like the original.
Yes, exactly. We know who the common original grantor is, right? It's the person who subdivided. We know that at some point, one person owned this entire lot, and then he subdivided it. So with these sort of subdivision communities, it's entirely possible to search back to the original. Now, Tyler, what would that entail though? Once you know the original owner, what do you have to search?
If you were the original?
If you know who the original owner is, and you want to see if there are any deed restrictions in this community, what do you have to search? How much stuff do you have to look up?
I mean, I'm sure quite a bit of information.
Why quite a bit? You're right. How come quite a bit?
I mean, there's a bunch of different transactions that took place.
Yeah, that's exactly right. If you are the original owner, right, you gave deed to a lot of people. Drywall would have had to search every single transaction from the original grantor and the transactions that would derive from the grantor and every deed and every mortgage and every covenant, right? So instead of just searching the people in your own chain, you got to search out, right? Or actually more like this. Starts up here and goes all the way down. You have a common grantor, all the way down. Think like a family tree, right? If you want to look at your great-great-great-great-grandfather in the family tree, you go to the cousins, the nephews, the aunts, uncles, you go everyone. So instead of going straight up, you have to branch out. So we all agreed it was entirely possible. It was entirely possible to do this, right? There was no problem with doing this. The question is, was it required to be done? So Delilah, was there a requirement from the court to actually do this humongous search of all the common grantors to find out what else is around?
It wasn't a requirement to do the huge search,
Okay.
but there was a requirement because all of the lots were one.
Ah, okay. So I gave you the hard way of figuring this out, right? If you wanted to be really precise, and you will also be lawyers, you should be precise, you've had to look up thousands of documents. But Delilah says, look, this is easy, right? This is not hard. Take a look around. Look at the block. There are only one-family homes. And that should put you on some sort of notice that something's up, right? So it's not required, right? It's not required to have to look up thousands of deeds. All that's required is to look around and say, well, probably something's up. At which point, then you go back to the original grantor and say, hey, are there any restrictions, right? So the Massachusetts court rules against drywall. But they do so not on the basis of this duty of inquiry, but just saying look around. And you should have been on notice. Okay? Everyone understand the holding of this case? Now, this is not necessarily a majority rule, and I think there's a note in the book about this. It's kind of a 50-50 issue, maybe yes, maybe no, that a deed restriction on a related property should put you on notice for another property. I think the rule that you should all take away from this case is that you should do your homework. And if you see there's some reason why there might be a restriction based on surrounding community blocks, you should do it. Better safe than sorry is a phrase that lawyers should have tattooed on their forehead. Because you can always do your due diligence in advance, but once you violate the easement of the restriction, then you're screwed, and then you're scrambled. So even if you're in a jurisdiction that doesn't follow this Massachusetts rule, which is basically half, always be overcompensating. And title insurance is not necessarily going to help you out here, right? Because when you bought the property, the title insurance didn't check what the restrictions were. It says here, you're buying the property, it's yours. But then if a couple years later you want to build an apartment, that's not going to help you through title insurance. So you have to do your own due diligence above and beyond. Robert?
So if you're not in this type of jurisdiction, what would be the rule then?
Well, the rule is you don't have the obligation to search. Therefore, you're gonna be a BFP, and you can do it. Yeah, Anthony.
If they hadn't referenced the 1968 plan for the subdivision, do you think the ruling would have been different?
That's a good question.
I
don't know.
I thought that it kind of went on that.
Yeah, I think that might have made a difference. Although, to be frank,
like it was an excuse kind of thing?
Yeah, I think the reference to the plan is whatever. I think they say look around, notice the block, you're the only one like this, you're probably doing it wrong. Yeah, Robert.
But then, what about, I don't know how, I mean, I've heard things about Houston, how we have very loose, zoning
You've
laws
heard
here,
correct.
so what about that?
So we're going to talk about zoning later this term. The city of Houston is unique. It's the only major city in the country without a formal zoning code. But Houston and Houstonians have been able to achieve much zoning through what Professor Festa calls backdoor zoning. Through what are called deed restrictions, communities can basically have private zoning codes. So even if the city has no zoning code, many neighborhoods do, and the properties are deed restricted. If you ever see this in Houston, deed restricted community, you've seen these signs, right? That's what they're talking about. So you can have a deed restricted community that says only one family homes, or only two family homes, no commercial, right? Anna?
Do you think that the drywall guy was trying to do anything in the state?
Maybe. I don't know. It's possible. I never thought of that. It's entirely possible that he was taking advantage of it, or he simply didn't care.
Well, I'm just like, was it a mistake that the restriction was carried?
I don't know. I mean, this was 40 years ago. Maybe people didn't have good records. But the point of the court is, even if this mistake happens, you're still having an obligation in Massachusetts to double check. Make sense? All right. Any other questions on that? All right. If you notice, and the way we frame the question, example number 7 on the board, I made a big deal saying it's a purchaser for value, right? Anna, you're next. What happens if it's not a purchaser for value, if it's a gift or someone who inherits the property? Would this question turn out any differently? Exactly question number 7, but he wasn't a purchase for value, he was received as a gift, or maybe he got an inheritance. Well, what's the phrase? What does BFP stand for? BFP. Ah, why is purchaser an important word in that phrase?
Well, it was a gift to like her father.
Yeah, that's right. So the recording statutes only apply for purchasers, and a purchaser for value in particular. That's why, if you notice, I always put this phrase, or the textbook at least, puts this phrase in. If you receive something as a gift, there's no consideration, or if you receive it as inheritance, there's no consideration, the recording statute will not protect you. Okay? The recording statute will not protect you. So in this case, had C gotten as a gift, C would not prevail. B would have prevailed. So just know, I mean, I can trick you on this exam. I don't think I've ever done it before, but I could, and say it was given as an inheritance or a gift. You cannot rely on the recording statute if it's inheritance or a gift. Easy enough? Make sense? Okay. Let's do the next case. Daniels versus Anderson. Is it Jillian? Okay. Avery. Give us the facts, please, in Daniels.
Yes, we have a plaintiff contracted with Joshua Anderson for the defendant to purchase land. And the sale included a right of refusal for, what is it, I think, contingent.
Okay. What's a right of refusal?
When you refuse to buy land for alcohol.
No. You want to know what a right of refusal is? Kayla.
Like, getting the first right to.
Exactly. It's basically a first right of refusal. So let's say, I sell Blackacre to David, and I also own Whiteacre. David negotiates with me and says, if anyone else wants to buy Whiteacre, which is right next door, you have to give me the right to buy at the same price. In other words, he has the right to refuse it before I go on selling it tomorrow. So what happened here is you had two pieces of land that were next to each other. That's what contiguous means, right? The contract gave Daniels the right of refusal if Joculo, which I was thinking of Dracula, right? But if Joculo ever decided to sell this other parcel, Okay? Now, the contract was never recorded, but the deed was. Oh, I'm sorry, Lane. Yes, ma'am.
What's the difference between the right of refusal and the law?
Very
They're
similar.
the same thing.
Very similar, yeah. Right? So here, though, we have two different concepts, right? The contract contained the right of refusal, but the deed did not. Jillian, I'll come back to you. This is from last week. What's the difference between a deed and a contract?
A deed is, well, a contract is, right, well, they're all what's conveyed, but a deed is what's conveyed. This is
Which document is usually longer and which is shorter?
contract.
Contract is longer or shorter?
Or a deed is the really, really long one.
No.
Okay, the contract is the really long one. The deed is the short one.
Yeah, not so good. The deed is going to be a fairly short document. We did this, right? It's usually a couple paragraphs in length. The contract is the really long one. And remember, it has all these provisions about like asbestos and, lead paint and, the furniture and the fixture. Remember this? It was like 8 pages, 9 pages in your textbook. What actually gets recorded at the county courthouse is not the contract. What's recorded in the courthouse is the deed. So what happens if you record a deed but not the contract? No one in the public will be aware of the terms of the contract. So here, because the right of refusal was put into the contract and not the deed, it was not made public. Bradley.
When you record the deed, can you attach the contract to it?
Attach is probably the wrong word. You would want to put the terms into the deed, right? Because if you think about it, you saw the book, right? They don't have a database. I mean, maybe they do today, but historically they didn't have like a database to put PDFs in, right? That wasn't the way it worked. You'd have to put the terms right in there. Yeah, Kaylee.
Okay, so what about today, modern day, what if the contract of sale is filed on at the standards?
Right, you can record the contract of sale, but it's generally not done. But it's not like an attachment; it's a separate document.
But would someone be on notice of the terms?
If it's recorded, yes. If they bring the contract of sale to record, that's fine. But traditionally, the reason why the deeds were short is that there are only a couple terms, and most of the time the contract has useless stuff. So if there's something important like the right of refusal, you want to put that right in the deed. You don't have to rely on a separate document. Yusuf.
You kind of answered it, but I was going to ask if you can just reference the contract.
But how would anyone know where it is? It gets destroyed. Who knows? Documents disappear. So if you want to be safe, you put in the deed. But that was not done here, right? The deed made no mention of this refusal. So then, a couple years later, Zographos bought the contiguous piece of property for $60,000. Daniels was not notified. Okay. So, just like that, right? Michael, was Zographos, could Zographos have determined at that point about this refusal, right of refusal? Right when in 1985, where he made the transaction.
No.
Okay, how come he would not have been able to determine at that point?
Because the contract of sale was not made.
Exactly, right? So the way we describe it's this. Zographos did not find it because it was not in his chain of title, right? Again, the phrase chain of title refers to stuff that he can look up. And there's nothing that he could have looked up to determine this. Okay? Everyone understand that? But the reason why this case is difficult is he didn't pay for it all at once. Right? That's what makes this case difficult. If he had just paid up straight up in 1985, no problem here, right? But instead, he decided to pay for it in terms. Isaac, you okay to go for today? Mm-hmm. Okay, good for you, sir. So, how did Zographos go ahead and engage this transaction?
There were 3 total payments.
Very good.
15,000, 15,000, 20,000, and between the second and third payment is when he received his notice
Exactly. So what form did the notice take, Isaac?
The wife came up and told him, hey, we've got first right of refusal.
Exactly. So what makes this case complicated is that when he first did the transaction, there was no way for him to know. But after he made some payments, and then he finally had the wife came over and said, hey, jerk, there's this right of refusal, and then we didn't get it. Now at that point, he went on what's called actual notice. This is not like constructive notice, maybe we should figure it out. He was told by the spouse of the person who actually had this notice. And then he made the final, I think it was $20,000 of payments. He got his deed and he recorded it. I saw a hand somewhere. Yeah, Anna.
Is there any requirement the other way for people with the right of refusal? They kind of have noticed that some.
Oh, you're saying why didn't they say something earlier?
Yeah, there's no requirement for them to.
I don't think there is. I mean, it's if they did, they did. If they didn't, they didn't. But the fact they waited this long means they probably got less money in the total.
Or it seems like someone like living next door.
Yeah, it's like what the hell, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe they're being polite. Maybe they didn't really care. I don't know. Isaac, your hand was up also?
If he had pled the equitable owner theory earlier, I think he would have succeeded.
Okay, yeah. So let's get to the actual analysis of the case. Daniel sued Jacula and Zographos, and they were seeking specific performance of the option, which is, and I think Lane said the word option. They're the same thing. And Zographos said, wait a minute, I'm a subsequent bona fide purchaser without notice. So one of the theories of appellate law that you need to know about, if an argument is not raised in the trial court, it is deemed waived. So if any of you are trial attorneys, right, if you fail to make an objection at the right time, that's it. It's gone. If you fail to raise something in your complaint, that's it. It's gone. If you decide to only raise it in an appeal for the first time, you're going to lose. Because the easiest way for the Court of Appeals to reject your case is to say, this was not raised in the trial court, waived, gone. I can't tell you when I was clerking at the Court of Appeals how often we would love writing those opinions because they're one paragraph. This was not raised in the court below, case dismissed. That's it. I mean, it's like a paragraph. I could say it in my sleep. So, very often what happens is even if you're a trial lawyer and you're working on a case that's probably going to go up, you have an appeals lawyer in your team who can help you make sure that your objections are filed timely, can help make sure your jury instructions are drafted in a specific way, put all of your objections in writing. Because this case, I think Isaac mentioned a minute ago, there's this theory of equitable conversion, right, where you're basically the record owner, even though you're not. He could have won on that one, but his trial lawyer didn't raise it, and that's it. Chester.
I think like Anna said, it makes sense that since he had right of first refusal, once he made the first payment, it's almost like you're waiting for right of first refusal. Well, subsequent payment.
Are you saying that the neighbor didn't object?
Yeah, like it's almost like he's waiting his right when you see somebody making multiple payments.
Yeah, I mean, as a matter of equity, if you sit on your remedy, right, and you don't take care of it right away, you waived it. But I think what happened here is a failure of him to raise it right away means he got less money out of it, right? So the fact that payments were made and made and made, ultimately, Daniel's got less than he would have otherwise if he objected to day number one.
Okay, so the fact that, well, I guess we're going to get to the contract first.
I'm sorry?
I guess we're going to get to the contract first.
Yeah, we'll get to the contract in a minute, but the waiver part's important. Mark, is your hand up?
I was just wondering, because, I mean, we're just assuming that he moved in next door because his wife was talking to him at some point. These were 2 pieces of land, and they might have never known.
They probably did. Or maybe they forgot. You know, it's not in the record, and if we can take anything from this case, it's that the trial counsel probably wasn't that good, and, you know, they probably didn't develop the record as well as they could have. If you notice, that's a pattern, right? We've had a couple cases so far where the Court of Appeals said, yeah, you didn't put enough evidence in the record, go back low. It's easy for an appellate judge to say that, but if you're a trial lawyer and you don't do your job in the trial, this comes back to bite you.
I've got a quick question
Yes.
on the notice.
Okay.
You said put it in the deed, but, it was on an adjacent tract, so would they pick that up in the chain of title? Since it-
Well, again, if they said we'll search from everything from the common grantor, they could have found it. But still, the contract was not recorded, so there's no way to find it.
Yeah, I was just like wondering, let's say that they did put that, right of first refusal in the deed that they purchased.
If they did, that'd be a different case. Then Zagrafos would not have been a bona fide purchaser for value.
Okay, I was just curious, just because it would be like on different pieces of property, like
Yeah.
they're saying like, okay.
Yeah, that's fine, right? You know to search the adjacent piece of property, but search for what? There's nothing recorded,
Yeah.
right? So everyone get that much, right? When he started the transaction, there was no way for him to know. But halfway through the transaction, he paid most of it. The neighbor, the wife, told him, and now he was on notice. Then he finished paying it, right? All right. So what happens here, Kayla?
So then the court goes on to address like the other issue, and it's like basically when does the buyer become a bona fide purchaser?
Okay, good. So when does a buyer become a bona fide purchaser for value?
Well, what's his name?
Zagrafos, yeah, Z is fine.
So he-
I actually have Z in my notes as well, because it's a hard name to spell.
The names are fine.
That's fine.
He argues that the buyer can rely on public records and ignore notice of an outstanding undisclosed interest.
Okay.
The court says no.
Okay. So that's right. So the question here, right, is a buyer who, prior to all the payments, gets notice. That person's not protected, right? The buyer receives notice subsequent to paying some, but prior to paying full. There's a split. Some authorities say there's a partial payment. Other authorities say you protect the buyer to the extent the payments were made prior to notice. There's also another rule that's called a pro tanto, which is basically a fraction, where you can award land to the holder of an outstanding interest. You can award a fractional amount. Okay? This case, though, they did something kind of a little bit weird. They said that Zagrafos must convey the land to Daniels. And Daniels must then pay the full purchase price and any property taxes that Zagrafos had already paid. What the court basically says is, we're not going to adopt a rule. All we're going to say is what the lower court did here is fine. It's not an error. So there are all these different rules of how to handle this situation, right? Of when you require specific performance, when you require recovery of damages. Here the court said, we find no error, specific performance is okay, and Daniels will pay off Zagrafos. Even though, right, Zagrafos had made almost half the payments, by the time he found out, he loses a property. If he had finished making the payments before he found out, the case would have been totally different. Chester?
So the wife telling him, like that rises to actual notice?
Actual notice, yeah.
Contract, he still hasn't seen the contract?
You raise a good point, right? He never read the contract. Maybe the wife was making stuff up, right? Maybe the wife was lying. Maybe she was just talking whatever. But the court said that's sufficient for actual notice. Because, let me ask you this, Chester. Once the wife told him that this contract exists, what's the reasonable thing for Zagrafos to do?
I mean, when he still checked the title, we said the contract's not in deed.
Yeah, but what would a reasonable person do if someone told him that?
Well, the person that you're paying for, like, you said that contract. Yeah.
He would go back to Jackdaw, right? He would go to Daniel, say, show me the contract. He would do something to try and find does this contract actually exist. And if he performs due diligence and he finds the contract, he's like, oh crap, I'm not making any more payments, right? I'm going to back out of this deal. But the fact that he kept making the payments even after he knew, that's why he got in trouble. I'm sorry? He recorded it, yeah. So he found out about this other transaction. He did nothing to inquire about it. He quietly finished paying the payments, and then he recorded it, saying, all right, it's mine now. Because he thought he could just sneak by. He wasn't expecting to get sued by Daniels. Right? So again, if the neighbor tells you that there's this other transaction, a reasonable person would say, let me go investigate this before I make any more payments. Right? He didn't do that. So I think what you're sensing from these cases is, if there's some way for you to find out that you dealt with a crook and you just stay quiet and you don't do anything, you're going to lose, right? That's our example 7 from the outset of the case. When B purchased the land, he should have known that something was up because there's no record of A getting it. B lost. So if you ever buy a piece of property and something is, doesn't add up exactly, and you don't do your homework, you're probably going to lose. And the court's going to say, why didn't you investigate, right? Why didn't you find out more? And as a result, they will say you're not a bona fide purchaser for value. And as a result, you are not protected by the common law, by the recording statute. Right? The only way you're protected by recording statute is if you're a BFP, bona fide purchaser for value. If you're not bona fide, you didn't do your homework, you lose. So always do your homework.
So, you don't become a bona fide purchaser until you make the full payment?
Well, if he had made the full payment up front, then it would have been ball game over. The thing would have been done. The fact that he stretched it out means he wasn't the full purchaser yet. The equitable argument Isaac mentioned may have changed the facts, but he waived that argument. Any questions on the Jackula Daniels case? Yeah, Anthony.
Just to clarify, if he had got a mortgage, it would have been done. If he had mortgage,
yes, the fact that he chose a note with the seller is different than the mortgage, because with the mortgage, the bank actually holds the deed at the outset.
Yeah.
So the fact that he did this with a note made it different. Yeah, good point. Anyone else on this case? Daniel, David.
They don't want to encourage people to be willfully ignorant. They want to encourage people to do
exactly right. The law wants to encourage people to do their homework and not take it with, suspicious circumstances. Make sense? Everyone okay with that case? Yeah, Bradley.
So the whole kind of thing goes on whether or not he's a purchaser and he's not a purchaser.
Well, purchaser bona fide. Say bona fide, right?
BFP.
Yeah, he's a BFP.
And he's not that until he's actually paid the full amount to the actual person selling it. And like Anthony's talking about that, with the mortgage, that full amount's being sent to him, and now he's on.
Yeah, and the bank holds the deed basically.
Okay.
Excuse me. What else? What else? Anything else? All right, let's move on. All right, let's do the next case. Page. So again, this is the California case page. What is about to happen? I'm sorry? Yeah, you're gonna have to speak up. I have no hearing in this ear. I'm really struggling. I feel like my grandpa. He was on a destroyer of World War II, and a kamikaze slammed in, so his right ear had bad hearing his entire life, and I have this weird premonition. But I have no excuse. Paige, so as loud as you can, please. What were the facts in Lewis v. Superior Court?
So Lewis is contacted by a house from the Shipley's.
I'm gonna have to come up. I can't hear you. I'm sorry. I'll walk up. I don't usually like entering the well, but it's too hard. All right, go ahead.
So they contacted to buy the house from the Shipley's for $2.2 million, and then a few days before the Lewis's were going to get the title, the Montana Films came out with the list.
List pendant.
Yeah.
What's a list pendant page?
It's a notice of a lawsuit that affects the title.
Okay, very good. Okay, so here's what happened in this case, right? The Lewises agreed to buy a house for $2 million. So this is not like a cheap property. This is probably a very expensive piece of property in California. Fontana, after the contract was signed, recorded his list pendants. And what a list pendants is a notice of pending litigation, right? Pending litigation, right? The reason why you file a list pendant is to put the world on notice that this property may be used to satisfy a judgment in the future, right? That in the event that this litigation is successful and they go after Lewis, the property is now subject to a lien. Even if the buyer had nothing to do with the transaction with Fontana, by taking property that's subject to a list pendant, you are taking it knowing that you may lose it, right? So no one in their right mind would ever buy a property subject to list pendants, right? Why would you buy something where if some litigation goes goes awry, you're gonna lose your house. No one's gonna do that. But what makes this one complicated is the sequence of events. So let me put this up here, since we have the thing, right? So in 223, right, Fontana records the lis pendens. But the lis pendens is not recorded, right, until the 29th. I think this was the example we used last week, right? What happens when you go to the registrar's office and like while you're in the bathroom it gets recorded, right? I think someone asked that last week. You can't rely on the government office to do anything right away. And that's, if you've ever been to the DMV, you know that, right? So you drop your paperwork off on the 23rd. It's like, all right, great, I'm done. But they don't record till 6 days later, leap year, in fact. Okay. But stuff happened in the middle. On the February 25th, Lewis pays Shipley $350,000 on a contract, right? Lewis pays Shipley $350,000. So Travis, when that payment was made, is there any way for Lewis to have conceivably known about this lis pendens?
No.
No, why not?
It wasn't indexed.
Exactly right. So at that point, Lewis was BFP, right? Not like BFF, but like he was a BFP, right? He was a BFP on the 25th, no problem there. Okay. Then on 2/28, they close, and Lewis receives the deed, okay, which is recorded. Okay, and he gave Shipley a note. Oops. He gave Shipley a note for $2 million. Okay, again, Travis, at that point, is Lewis a BFP?
Yes.
Okay. He's still a BFP here. Okay? Then the next day, February leap year, right? The lis pendens is finally recorded. All right? But then, in March of 92, Lewis pays off the note. Okay? And then in September of 1993, Lewis is served in the lawsuit, and he knows about the lis pendens, right? So Travis, when the payments were made in March of 92, was Lewis still a BFP at that point?
Yeah.
Why?
Because he didn't have notice and he purchased.
Well, could he have found out? Right? I'm asking about right here, right? In March of 92. Could, when he made that payment, could he have discovered that this lis pendens was floating around?
Yeah.
Yeah, why?
Because it was indexed like 4
Okay,
days out.
everyone see that, right? When he made the final payments about a month later, in March, the universe of information, his chain of title included that lis pendens. Because he could have searched for Shipley and said, oh crap, right? Shipley has this lis pendens, I'm out of here, right? This is not what I want, this is not what I agreed to. At that point, he could have stopped making the payments. He could have sued Shipley for fraud for failing to disclose his pending judgment. But he didn't. What did he do? He finished making the payments quietly, and he recorded. You're noticing a pattern here, right? He could have done something to make a fuss, but he's like, screw it, right? This is my house. I did renovations here. $1 million renovations. I don't care. Whatever, this Fontana guy, doesn't matter. He probably had no idea, but he had no opportunity to even check because he didn't care, right? He said, whatever, this is mine, I'm going to go forward. Lauren, you raising your hand? Okay. So everyone see the facts here, right? So Alex, under the common law, what happens here? Under the common law rule, at least, who does Lewis keep the house under the common law?
Not in common law.
He would not. Why not?
Because he hadn't fully paid at that time.
Yeah. So this is the issue, right? Because under the common law, he had not made all the payments. He wasn't the owner yet. And because he wasn't the owner yet, he's not a BFP. Therefore, his property could be attached in the litigation with Fontana. That was a common law rule. There's a case from California, like a 100-year-old case, right? Alex, what do they do to that 100-year-old case?
They overturned it.
Whoa!
No, they didn't overturn it. They just said it doesn't apply.
You're right. So again, this is a decision from the California Court of Appeals, right? Intermediate court. The California Court of Appeals, my friends, cannot overturn the California Supreme Court. But they came awfully close, Alex. You used the right word. How did they actually tap dance around this issue?
They distinguished it.
They distinguish it. They did more than distinguish it. What they had, they did a little bit more than that.
It's an outdated theory.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they have lots of fluff around it. They basically said, this is a theory that's outdated. It's not consistent with our modern times. So we're going to limit it to its facts. Limit it to its facts. What does that mean? Unless you have a case that's exactly like the one from the 1800s, it has no effect. Tell me, what is the difference between overturning a case and limiting it to its facts? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So this is a striking decision, which, to my knowledge, the Supreme Court of California didn't even care about. They didn't even reverse them. But this is an intermediate court, a court of appeals, saying, we're going to ignore this old decision because it's not consistent with our modern times. Right? And that's it. That's it. So under the modern rule, tell you what the modern rule is, the fact that payments are not completed is not sufficient to defeat being a BFP. Right? You can still be a BFP even if all the payments haven't been completed. And I think the reason why it makes some sense. Do you really want to go do a title search every time you make a payment? Right? Imagine you made 48 monthly payments, right? Are you required to go to the office every single month and check if someone had filed a subsequent list pendants? That's a lot of work, right? I mean, you want to write your check, pay off your mortgage, not your mortgage, pay off your note, whatever else. So I think this whole thing makes sense. What grinds my gears about it is that you have an appellate court basically ignoring the Supreme Court, and that makes me unhappy. But they do that sometimes. And as far as my knowledge goes, the Supreme Court of California never reversed. Yeah, Robert?
I'm not sure if this matters or not, but my notes say on 229 that it's indexed instead of recorded. Is that a distinction that matters?
Yes, actually. So I don't have the picture in front of me. Remember the big book, the index book, right? Even if the deed is somewhere in the archives of the courthouse, the only way you'll know to find it is by looking at the index first, right? You don't just randomly go through boxes of papers. So the index would actually allows you to discover what documents exist. So the index is subsequent to recording. So when you record something, literally you bring it to a courthouse, they put like a stamp on it or something, put it in a box. But they say, okay, we're going to now index the stuff in this box a week later so that people can find it. So in this, there were, 6 days between when it was recorded and it was indexed. During that time, there was no way to discover the documents in existence. It was probably literally in some bureaucrat's, desk sitting there, waiting to be indexed.
So would that be list pendants?
I'm sorry,
Sorry, so would that just be list pendants indexed instead of recorded on Tuesday?
Well, the list pendants was recorded on the 23rd, but was indexed on the 29th.
Okay.
They're two separate events.
Yeah, I just didn't know for the 29th on your notes.
I meant index. I'm sorry. Did I write the wrong thing?
Yeah, that's what I'm.
There you go. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, it was recorded on the 23rd, and it was indexed on the 20th. Thank you for the correction. I appreciate it. Anna.
So even these facts are written kind of like the modern rule, because with the common law rule, you wouldn't be a BFP on the 25th or the 28th, right?
Yeah. So on the common law rule, he was a BFP up to a point. So you would probably have to apply like the pro tanto rule, where he'd be on the hook for, he would not be on the hook for $350,000 or $2 million, but he would be on the hook for the balance. So in other words, under the pro tanto rule, you're only on the hook for the part when you were in a BFP. So he couldn't attach the entirety of the property. He could only attach part of the purchase price. Make sense, Robert?
How is it that they're making the payments in this case? Is it the bank owned it?
There's no bank. That's why this case is funky. This is Anthony's question a minute ago. This is a note. Basically, the seller took out a line of credit with the buyer and said, you can pay me off in installments. Right? If there was a bank, this case would have been so much easier because the bank holds the deed up front. The bank pays everything right away, and then you're paying a note. You're paying a monthly payment to the bank. Here, because it's with the original seller, it's a different picture.
So then, how does this, I guess, work with the Daniels case where it says that you don't become a bona fide purchaser if you make the full?
Their intention, aren't they? Their intention. I think the Illinois, the Daniels case is more of a common law rule. But they said the case he lost because he knew about it, right? I'm sorry. Let me say it again. I think I only heard half your question. It's really weird. It's like this ear is fine, but that ear is not. So maybe this. Anyway, I turn my listening ear. The Illinois case, the remedy was very strange. They said that even though half of the payments were made while he was a BFP, we're going to just have him convey the entire house altogether. I think the correct holding would have been under the common law rule to only make him be responsible for half of the payment, not the entire thing. And that's, I think specific performance was not appropriate there. Right? Here, they basically say he was a BFP throughout, even though he could have found out the last go. Make sense? All right, other questions? All right, let's do the last case. The last case is actually a little bit tricky. It involves different kinds of notice, and I alluded to this earlier, but there are three kinds of notice, right? There's actual notice, there's record notice, and there's inquiry notice. Travis, give me an example. What's actual notice? Yeah, give me an example of one of the cases we did today that would be an example of actual notice. Well, no, even beyond chain title. What was the example in Daniels of the actual notice? Yeah. The wife told you, hey, we have this right of refusal. That's actual notice. Or maybe when you get served in a lawsuit about the list pendants, that's actual notice. Okay? Now, William, the other two, record notice and inquiry notice, are basically the same thing. I've been teaching this for years. I can't really determine the difference. But generally speaking, what are record notice, I merged them. Record notice and inquiry notice. What are those things?
Well, wouldn't record notice be like the list pendant was filed, so technically you could go look it up, and inquiry would be when you actually go through the motions of searching for title?
Yeah, they overlap a lot, right? They're both constructive, right? They're both types of constructive notice, where you don't actually have notice that something's up, but there are certain facts that you should be on notice to find. So maybe there's something in the record, right? Maybe you see a record to a plan somewhere. Because there's a record to a plan, that means you should go dig deeper. Or maybe there's an inquiry. If every house on your block is a one-family home, and you want to build an apartment building, you should probably look it up, right? So these kinds of notice are, what should a person be responsible for searching for? Is there some evidence in reality or on paper that something is up? Okay? So the facts in the Harper case are a little bit complicated. I want to walk you through this. The basics of this case is you had a deed that was hidden in a trunk somewhere for decades. And you had a family that tried to work around the fact that they didn't have the paperwork. And you can imagine what happened here, right? You can relate to the story because they just lost the paper. They know where it was. They said, all right, let's make it up. So in February of 1922, right? Harper, I'll use your first name, make it easier. Susan gives Maud a warranty deed, okay, for life, right? With the remainder to Maud's children, okay? We all remember this from property. One, it's a life estate with remainder to her children, okay? The problem is, this deed is lost until 57, right? So, actually I'll do it like this. 1957, deed recovered, or deed found, okay? But in between that, a lot of stuff happens. Susan dies, 1927, give or take. and she's intestate. What does that mean? She has no will.
She died in 1970.
I'm sorry?
She died in 1970.
That's Maud.
I think.
Susan Harper.
Yeah, right?
No, that's Maud.
No, that's Maud.
Oh, okay.
No, Maud died. Maud is a daughter-in-law.
Oh.
Thank you. So Susan dies intestate in 27, right? And her kids are like, well, what are we going to do here, right? We know about this deed, right? We know about this deed. So in 1928, 3 out of 4 of Susan's heirs execute this instrument. And this is a very strange document. They put the words in it. But it basically says, right, they're quitclaiming their interest to Maud. Now, Maud got a life estate from Susan, but the kids, the heirs, they did not give her a life estate. They gave her a general warranty deed. In other words, they purported to give her fee simple, right? They purported to give to Maud a fee simple estate. Now, importantly, the deed says that there's something that's been lost or destroyed, right? It has this language in here. It references earlier document that was lost or destroyed. Okay? Why is this important? Right? Christine, I'm sorry, your name was blocked. Christine, I'm sorry. Why is it important that they reference in here that there was some other deed lost or destroyed? What should that do to a subsequent buyer? They should look into it or be nervous, right? Because if you have this instrument signed that says, well, we're giving this makeup deed because the other one's destroyed or lost, that's a good indication that the piece of paper you have is garbage, right? That the document you have in front of you is not worth the paper it's written on because it's not real. It wasn't real. It wasn't signed by all the heirs. And this other one, this 1922 deed, even if it's destroyed, it's still valid, right? If you burn a deed, that doesn't mean you lose the property, right? Let's say you have a deed and your house burns down. All the paper is destroyed. You don't lose your house. Or to give you a common law example, even if you're William Marbury and you never get your commission, you're still a judge. It's the same principle. So that was 1928. Now, poor Maud, you know, she falls on hard times, right? Maud falls on hard times. And she basically mortgages the property for $50, right? Can you imagine Susan's rolling over in her grave, right? This poor woman, right, leaves her property to the daughter-in-law who loves her so much, and she mortgages it for $50, and then in 1936 she defaults, right? Not a good transaction. We don't really know why.
Well, with 33, how much is $50
Not enough to break Maud's heart. I mean Susan's heart, right? Maybe it was a lot. I don't know. You can run the numbers, but it seems she didn't care for it nearly as much as Susan thought she would. Fred didn't care. Okay. So then in 36 it's foreclosed, and they have a sheriff's sale. Okay, and Thornton acquires it. Oops. And Thornton acquires it, right? So then we have transactions between 36 and 55. Thornton sells to Lincoln and Paradise. Great name, right? All right, but now in 57, the deed is found. Ah, magic, right? And then, and finally in 72, Maud dies. Mia, what's going to happen here? What do we do? We have this missing deed was gone for 40 years or 50 years, and we find it. I mean, what the hell? What do we do here?
I think that the rightful owners are Maud's heirs.
Why?
Because once that language appeared with the lost or destroyed, that should have put everyone, like, after on notice that something was up.
That's exactly right. Okay, exactly right. Once you're Thornton or Lincoln or Paradise, and you do your title search, and you see this language that there's this other deed that's been lost or destroyed. You should know that something's up. But they looked over it. They see the pattern, right? You should have done something. You didn't. You got screwed, right? You could have looked it up. You failed to do it. Therefore, you're in trouble. And as a result, the only deed that ever had effect was a 1922 deed, which gave Maud a life estate. And at the remainder of Maud's life estate, at the end of Maud's life estate, when she dies, it goes to Maud's children as remainder. So the children have remainder in fee simple. Therefore, this mortgage was not valid, right? All Maud could mortgage was her life estate. Even though she purported to mortgage her fee simple, she didn't have it. She could only mortgage her life estate, which is fine. You can give a mortgage on a life estate, but once the life estate terminates, your mortgage is vanquished because you're not mortgaged against the successors. The kids come in, they own a fee simple, and the children prevail. Right? The important point is the 1928 deed provided constructive notice that the 1922 deed existed. Let me say that again. The 1928 deed provided constructive notice that this 1922 deed existed, and subsequent purchasers were not bona fide. They did not take honestly. They should have known something was up. Yeah, Bradley.
So, would we consider it a record notice and not an inquiry?
I think so. Yeah. The fact that the paperwork suggested something was up means you should have looked into it.
Is there? Can we just?
I'm sorry. One at a time. Especially with my bad hearing. One at a time, please.
Is it okay to just assume if it's about paperwork, then it's going to be record instead?
Yeah, Bradley. I mean this. Don't get bogged down in the difference. I prefer the term actual notice and constructive notice far more than I care about record or inquiry. Those words are fictional, right? I heard a voice over here. Yeah, if you just tell me constructive notice, I'm happy with it. I don't really think there's a difference. But just tell me actual constructive. I'd be happy. All right. Let me mention briefly title insurance, right? We've been talking about, why didn't you look things up? Most people are not sophisticated enough to actually do this themselves, so they pay a company to do it. And it's called a title search. And at least in Texas, the rates for title search are fixed. So if the purchase price per home is, say, $50,000, the title insurance is about $500. If it's a $100,000 property, the title insurance is about $800. There's a table. I linked to it, I think, on today's class page, so you can you can see the rates here. Quickly. But that's not bad to look at. The important thing about title insurance, here it is. So there's a table, and you can match up the purchase price of the house with the premium. Okay. And the purchase of title insurance is to make sure that there are no gaps in the chain. Make sure that there is no sort of easements or covenants you're aware of. It's going to give you a full picture before you buy property. So questions about that? Bradley?
Is that a yearly premium, or is it just a one-time?
No, it's a one-time fee. When you buy the house, you get your title insurance. They give you a statement about it's called an abstract of title, which discusses basically your chain.
And so, if there's any issues, they take the fall?
They take the hit, yeah. So if you have title insurance and they fail to disclose there was something else in the chain, they pay you back the purchase price. So that's an incentive for the company not to screw up. They do their job thoroughly. So let me summarize a bit of a minute left. Coming after class is fine. The issue with chain of title is don't be lazy. Okay? If there's something that you can find out and you choose not to, you simply stay quiet and buy it anyway, you're probably going to lose. If you do your due diligence and find out there's a gap, that's the point where you stop making payments and you sue the seller for fraud, right? For failure to disclose. But if you know the seller committed fraud and you continue to engage in a transaction, you're going to lose. And unless you have title insurance, you're probably going to be on the hook. Okay? If you have any questions, please come up. Also, I hope to see you in Garrett Towns in 10 minutes. We'll have a good discussion of the Constitution. Thank you so much.